For many teams in the NFL, the best plans don't always work out, especially at the quarterback position. Sometimes the guy you had penciled in at QB1 ends up hurt or simply doesn't perform well enough to give your team the best chance to win. Just ask Jets and Giants fans. They know this very well as their teams had to utilize backup QBs this season. CBS Sports Radio columnist Jack Stern, he believes second-string quarterbacks have never been more important. And he joins me now to discuss. Jack, how's it going, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me again, Dexter. It's always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure here, my friend. And Jack, this season, we've seen quite a few teams have to go to their backup QB. So I got to ask you this. How important is it for an organization to have a quality backup, and how devastating can it be when you don't have one?
Well, it's more important now than it's ever been in the history of the NFL, right? Even dating back to a few years ago, if your starting quarterback went down, you had an excuse for your season going downhill. Now that's not the case. Take last season, for an example, where only 22 out of the 32 teams in the league finished the season with their starter under center. And when you add in the fact that 5 teams, when you consider Trevor Lawrence's recent injury, have now lost their starting quarterback this year, roughly half the teams in this league are relying on a backup. So it's a lot more important now than it's ever been to have a quality backup quarterback. And the impact of not having one can be absolutely devastating. Look at the situation that's unfolded with the Jets, where they've lost 5 straight games, are kind of a boat without a rudder right now. The same cannot be said for the Cincinnati Bengals, where Jake Browning has done a very nice job stepping in for Joe Burrow. Indianapolis, obviously, we saw Gardner Minshew take over for rookie Anthony Richardson. And then in Minnesota, Josh Dobbs, well, not of the same quality as Kirk Cousins, has still helped them win a couple of ball games. So I think it's really important to have someone who, at a minimum, is serviceable and at a maximum can really help keep the production going with your team.
Yeah, always good if you have somebody who can help hold the fort down there for your team. Okay, so we can say that there is value in having not only a quality starter, but a quality second stringer. But is there a great deal of quality when you look at the second string quarterbacks who've been thrust into roles as a starter? Is that what you're seeing around the league?
You know, I think there's a lot more quality at the backup quarterback position than a lot of people would like to acknowledge, right? I mean, in contrast to other positions in the league where you have 3 or 4 defensive backs starting on a weekly basis, there's only one quarterback. That means that there's only 32 starting quarterback jobs in the NFL, so a lot of players are going to be relegated to the backup role. Now, that's not to say that any of the backups would be starting somewhere else or even should be starting somewhere else, but there is some talent to be found at this second tier kind of level, and teams are really starting to understand and realize that this season.
So I got to ask this then, with that being said, understanding the value of the position, should organizations spend more time in developing a quality backup and prioritize having one on the roster when it comes to team building? Is this something they should be looking at in terms of building their team years out?
Yeah, I think general managers and front offices as a whole need to start being a little bit more patient when it comes to the development of a quarterback. Now, that is twofold, because if you have someone there who can't start, who's not capable of playing at the NFL, then you have a real problem on your hands. But I don't think it's necessarily unrealistic to expect teams to keep a quarterback for 2-3 years, kind of as means of redshirting him. We see it in college all the time. Why not start to do that a little bit more in the pros? It's hard to expect college quarterbacks where there's no huddle, they're not playing in pro-style offenses, at least for the most part, to seamlessly just make that jump to the next level. So what I would like to see is these teams really placing more of an emphasis on development, allowing quarterbacks to be on the practice squad or sit in the third string role where they're inactive on game day to try and keep them on the roster, allow them to learn from a veteran instead of just throwing them out like a used couch on a rainy day. I think that that's been a big issue in the league, is giving up on quarterbacks too early. One name that comes to mind, and someone who was drafted in the same draft class as Dak Prescott, is Paxton Lynch, right? He was taken 25th overall by the Denver Broncos, kind of teetered between being the starter and the backup in every single year that he was there in Denver, and then he flamed out of the league. I don't want to see that type of situation happening a lot more. That's obviously kind of a cautionary tale. And yeah, allow teams to draft and develop someone for a couple of years and then hopefully either allow them to be your starter or trade them somewhere else where they're going to get more playing time. That's going to be a strategy that becomes a lot more prevalent with the injuries that have taken place.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You think about a situation like that. You also think about the Giants currently with Tommy DeVito. Will they let him develop as a potential backup quarterback and maybe see what they have there, somebody who can be part of their program going forward? That is Jack Stern of CBS Sports Radio. Does a great job writing different columns. Check out his column on why backup quarterbacks are more important now more than ever. It is a really good one. Jack, as always, thank you for the time. We'll do this again and talk soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it. And hopefully we are able to see some backup quarterbacks play well tonight in the Steelers-Patriots game as well.
Well, you know who I'm rooting for in that game, and I can only hope so. Thanks, man.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Thank you.